The champagne was always vintage. The dress code was pristine white, and the guest list read like a roll call of the world's most powerful icons. For 3 decades, Sean Diddy Combs didn't just throw parties. He orchestrated a glittering, velvet-wrapped illusion of absolute success. The white parties in the Hamptons weren't just social gatherings. They were cathedrals of toxicity where the line between art and crime blurred under the relentless flash of Hollywood cameras. But in 2024, the paparazzi's flashbulbs were replaced by the cold, sharp beams of FBI flashlights. The king of bad boys realized that even a billion-dollar empire couldn't outrun the domino effect triggered by decades of dark secrets. Lavish mansions in Los Angeles and Miami, once symbols of invincibility, became crime scenes before the eyes of the world. This isn't just the end of a career. It is a collapse of a systemic cover-up that spanned generations. Welcome to Society Noir. Before the police sirens drowned out the hip-hop beats, we must understand how a man who renamed himself Love became the most feared name in the music industry. Sean Combs didn't start as the most talented artist. He started as the most masterful manipulator. Flashback to the 90s. While other artists focused on writing lyrics, D focused on owning their souls through business contracts. He built Bad Boy Records not just as a label, but as a fortress. The passing of Biggie Smalls, a horrific tragedy for hip-hop, unintentionally became the springboard that launched Diddy into a position of a powerful survivor. He knew how to turn pain into profit and public mourning into a massive marketing campaign. Diddy didn't just manage artists. He ran a psychological takeover of popular culture. He turned danger into a luxury brand. Every time he changed his name, from Puff Daddy to P, Diddy, then Love, it wasn't an identity crisis. It was a molting strategy. Every new name was a fresh coat of paint to hide the widening cracks in his persona. Why did the Hollywood elite flock to his parties despite the rumors of freak-offs, coerced debauchery that had been whispering for years? The answer lies in the formula. Admiration wrapped in fear. At Diddy's parties, power was ruthlessly tiered. If you were invited, you were somebody. If you were left off the list, you didn't exist. Diddy created an ecosystem where proximity to him was a passport to the elite, but the price of admission was often silence. He built the white parties as a place where the upper crust traded their self-respect for a ticket. It wasn't just partying. It was where Diddy established his own monarchical order. There, he was the law, the grantor of favors, and the man who could destroy anyone with a single glance. The images of A-list stars, from Oscar winners to politicians, standing beside Diddy in pristine white now serve as evidence of collective complicity. Why did Diddy's classic PR tactics fail so spectacularly in the digital age? In the past, Diddy could extinguish scandals with power and money. He survived a 1999 nightclub shooting, numerous allegations of violence, and contract disputes. But in late 2023, the world changed. Cassie Ventura's lawsuit wasn't just a legal allegation. It was a lethal needle that popped Diddy's polished, oversized ego. For the first time, raw details of control, violence, and coercion were brought to light systematically. Though Diddy attempted to settle with money, in just 24 hours, the dam had already burst. That lightning-fast settlement didn't prove innocence. It only revealed the extreme panic of a man used to controlling everything. In the era of #MeToo and social media, old videos and awkward interviews from artists who once worked with Diddy were suddenly unearthed. YouTube and TikTok audiences became digital detectives, connecting dots that the mainstream press had previously been too afraid to touch. Rebranding tactics, like trying to build an image as a devoted father or humanitarian, became laughable in the face of ironclad evidence. When federal agencies officially intervened, the mask finally fell. The FBI raids on his mansions weren't just about searching for evidence. They were a powerful message. No one is too big to fall. As luxury brands fled and long-term business partners terminated contracts, we witnessed the brutal reality of Hollywood. In a world of artifice, loyalty is just a commodity with an expiration date. Star friends who once proudly posted photos with Diddy hurried to delete their posts or remained absolutely silent. This silence is sometimes more terrifying than an accusation, as it reflects the fear of what Diddy might still hold over them. The fall of Sean Combs is not merely a personal criminal case. It is an autopsy of a fallen titan, A lesson that even the greatest mastermind runs out of cards when the truth is no longer obscured by the spotlight. Diddy's empire was built on the sands of deception, and as the tide of justice rises, all that remains is the ruins of fame. By the mid-2010s, Sean Combs had successfully transitioned from a mere music mogul into a seemingly untouchable global institution. He was no longer just a man. He was a brand, a lifestyle, a shifting enigma who changed his name, Diddy Love, Brother Love, as often as he changed his silk shirts. In the world of Society Noir, this isn't just vanity. It's a high-level psychological tactic designed to keep the public and its subordinates permanently off balance. If you don't know what to call the king, you certainly don't know how to challenge him. But beneath this constant rebranding lay a deepening, predatory darkness that the glittering lights of the Grammys could no longer sanitize. This was the era where the elite bacchanals evolved from legendary industry parties into something far more sinister, resembling a hostile psychological takeover of human autonomy. The white parties, once the pinnacle of Hampton's elegance, began to serve as a high-end distraction for what was happening in the shadows of his private estates. We are talking about a world where the velvet-lined prison wasn't just a metaphor. It was a literal environment curated with dictatorial precision. Imagine a table where the world's most powerful people sat, oblivious or perhaps indifferent to the fact that the floor beneath them was built on a foundation of suppressed trauma and calculated transactions of human dignity. To understand the sheer scale of the Diddy Empire's toxicity, one must examine the freak-offs, sessions of marathon debauchery that allegedly turned luxury hotel suites into chemical-fueled war zones. In these private chambers, the silver syringes of the 60s counterculture were replaced by a modern, pharmaceutical-grade chaos. Diddy wasn't just a host. According to mounting legal allegations, he was a choreographer of degradation. He allegedly utilized his vast resources to orchestrate multi-day performances where the lines between consent consciousness and coercion were systematically erased. This wasn't just a party. It was a psychological laboratory where power was the only currency and vulnerability was a primary fuel. But why did no one speak up for decades? The answer lies in the shadow cabinet of vendettas. Diddy didn't just have bodyguards. He had a paramilitary-style security apparatus and a fleet of high-priced corporate vultures in legal suits who enforce a culture of absolute silence. If you were part of the inner circle, you weren't just an employee. You were a digital asset. The alleged use of hidden cameras during these freak-offs created a terrifying insurance policy, a golden revelation of blackmail that ensured the elite stayed quiet and the victims stayed terrified. In the industry, it was an open secret whisper in the back of black SUVs, a creeping pool of crimson that everyone saw but no one dared report, fearing the abrupt logout from their own careers. The toxic catalyst that finally shattered this 30-year glass fortress wasn't a federal raid or a boardroom coup. It was Cassie Ventura. For over a decade, Cassie had lived within the most intimate circles of the Diddy machine, functioning as both a partner and, as her lawsuit would later allege, a primary victim of his dictatorial precision. When she filed her bombshell lawsuit in late 2023, it wasn't just a legal document. It was a forensic autopsy of a long-term, systematic dismantling of a human soul. The details were chilling. Allegations of physical violence, forced chemical consumption, and a level of control that made the velvet-lined prison feel like a high-tech cage. Cassie's defiance created a massive pattern interrupt in the Diddy narrative. For the first time, the silver-tongued mogul couldn't just write a check or release a rebranding video to make the problem vanish. Although the initial lawsuit was settled within 24 hours, a classic calculated transaction meant to bury the truth. The damage was irreversible. The seal had been broken. The settlement didn't act as a lid. It acted as a flare, signaling to every other person who had been colonized by his influence that the god of bad boy was bleeding. In the months that followed, the gravity of the shadows began to pull everything down. More victims emerged from the darkness, each telling the story of a mogul who uses intoxicating fumes of absolute power to turn dreams into nightmares. The industry's reaction was a fascinating study in elite cowardice. The same A-list celebrities who had spent decades clinking glasses with Diddy suddenly suffered from a severe case of collective amnesia. They performed an abrupt logout from a social circle, frantically deleting photos and distancing themselves from the creeping pool of crimson that now surrounded the Combs brand. The corporate vultures who had profited from his liquor deals and clothing lines began to circle the dying empire, not to help, but to strip away whatever remained of the assets before the feds arrived. Then came the visual evidence, the biological receipt that no PR team could spin. The leaked surveillance footage from 2016, showing a brutal physical encounter in a hotel hallway, stripped away the last vestige of the brother-love persona. It revealed the architect of adulterated dreams in his rawest form, a man who believed his wealth made him immune to the consequences of his own chemical chaos. The world watched in a state of horrified fascination as the image of the billionaire philanthropist evaporated, replaced by the reality of a predatory IT mogul whose ego had finally outgrown his ability to hide. As the federal government launched its own hostile takeover of his properties, seizing boxes of evidence and electronics, the true scope of the shadow cabinet began to emerge. This wasn't just about one man's bad behavior. It was about a systemic failure of an entire industry that allowed a psychological vampire to operate in plain sight because he was profitable. Diddy had spent his life flying toward the sun on wings made of NDAs and intimidation. But the gravity of the shadows is a relentless force. Every hotel room, every private jet, and every silver syringe was now being mapped out by investigators. The collapse of an empire is rarely a quiet affair. It is a violent, structural failure that echoes to the corridors of power. For Sean Combs, the flight of glamour hit a terminal wall in March 2024 when federal agents conducted a synchronized, high-profile hostile takeover of his residences in Los Angeles and Miami. This wasn't just a routine search. It was a military-grade extraction of a mogul's most guarded secrets. As Homeland Security helicopters hovered over his pristine estates, the world watched a permanent biological retirement of a public persona in real time. The image of Diddy's sons being handcuffed on a driveway served as a golden revelation to the masses. The shadow cabinet of vendettas had finally been breached by a force even more ruthless than the bad boy machine. To understand the magnitude of this abrupt logout from elite society, we must look at the evidence seized during these raids. Reports emerge of hundreds of electronics being confiscated, a digital library that allegedly contained the chemical chaos of the freak-offs captured in high definition. This is where the psychological vampire met the cold reality of forensic data. In the digital age, a calculated transaction of silence is impossible once the hardware is in the hands of the state. Every encrypted message, every hidden camera angle, and every deleted file became a brick in the wall of a federal indictment. The mogul who had spent decades choreographing the lives of others was now a mere spectator in a legal drama he could no longer edit. But the fall of Diddy wasn't just a legal crisis. It was a total systemic erasure. Within weeks of the raids, the corporate vultures who had once bowed to his influence began to systematically dismantle his commercial empire. His clothing brand, Sean John, once a symbol of black excellence and streetwear dominance, became a radioactive asset. His partnership with Diageo, the source of his massive liquor wealth, dissolved in a creeping pool of crimson legal battle that exposed the ugly underbelly of celebrity branding. The elite colleges that had awarded him honorary degrees scrambled to perform a psychological divorce, stripping his name from their halls as if they were trying to scrub a stain from a white tuxedo. This is the absolute cruelty of the industry. You are a god only as long as you are a profit center. The moment you become a liability, the velvet-lined prison turns into a concrete reality. As the legal net tightened, the Society Noir lens reveals a terrifying isolation. Imagine a man who once to the world's most exclusive parties, sitting in a silent room, watching his shadow cabinet disappear one by one. The silence of his former peers, the rappers, the moguls, the Hollywood icons, was more deafening than any court testimony. They weren't just staying quiet. They were participating in a forensic dismantling of his relevance. It was a permanent logout from the cultural zeitgeist. The man who once claimed he invented the remix was now being remixed by the public as a cautionary tale, a toxic catalyst for a much-needed reckoning within the entertainment industry's power structures. The forensic autopsy of Diddy's career reveals a chilling truth. The industry didn't just allow him to exist. It actively nurtured his dictatorial precision. For 30 years, the intoxicating fumes of absolute power blinded those who should have been the gatekeepers. The elite bacchanals were subsidized by major labels, the freak-offs were shielded by high-priced PR firms, and the victims were silenced by a legal system that favors the billionaire inheritance over human justice. Diddy was not an anomaly. He was the ultimate product of a hostile psychological environment where success is prioritized over morality and where chemical chaos is often mistaken for creative genius. Now, we must face the legacy of the shadow. As the judicial process grinds forward, the story of Sean Combs has moved beyond the tabloids and into the realm of a cultural forensic breakdown. We are witnessing the death of a specific type of mogul, the untouchable kingmaker who operates in the silver shadows of the law. His downfall serves as a pattern interrupt for a generation of young artists, a brutal lesson that the velvet gallows are always waiting for those who believe they can conquer the sun. The creeping pool of crimson that Cassie Ventura first pointed out has now become a flood, washing away the carefully curated brother love illusion to reveal the architect of adulterated dreams underneath. In the final act of this tragedy, there is no golden revelation that can save him. There's only the cold, hard date of a life lived in pursuit of total control. The luminous comet that was Bad Boy Records is finally burnt out, leaving behind a chemical residue of broken lives and shattered illusions. As the heavy doors of the legal system close, the permanent logout is complete. Sean Combs, once a master of the New York underground, is now a resident of a very different type of velvet-lined prison. One where the cameras are always on, but there are no flashbulbs, no fans, and no music. This is the end of the Diddy era. It ends not with a bang or a world tour finale, but with a forensic autopsy conducted in the light of day. It is a story of how absolute power doesn't just corrupt. It consumes everything and everyone around it until there is nothing left but a creeping pool of crimson on a marble floor. Welcome to the final exit of an icon. Welcome to the permanent silence of the man who once controlled the noise. As we close this chapter of Society Noir, remember the lesson of the Icarus of Harlem. When you build an empire on the toxic catalyst of fear and chemical chaos, the gravity of your own shadows will always find a way to pull you down. The world will move on, the music will continue, but the name Sean Combs will forever be a psychological warning carved into the history of Hollywood. A man who had everything, only to realize that in the end, he was the only obedient victim of his own unchecked ego. The curtain falls, the lights dim, the abrupt logout is final.